How much does it cost to build a dirty old full drive into a capable off-road rig? Well, the answer is a lot. Although it does change dramatically from build to build, I believe that if you do as much DIY as possible, you can keep the cost down to a pretty surprising amount. Actually, before you watch the video, let me know in the comments how much you think I've spent, and then you can find out at the end.
So today's video is just going to be talking about the costings of the Patrol, what it's actually cost me to build it and get it to the level that it's at now. Now there is going to be a lot of variables, especially with COVID, everything has gone skyrocketing up, so just keep that in mind when I'm talking about the prices. Now Coil is about to go through a pretty big change, and I wanted to sort of get this video out prior to the change so you can have a look at the figures of building a ute and just getting it to the point where you can drive it on the road, take it on tracks and just have fun. Now before we start, I do want you to keep in mind that if you are looking at doing a build like this and you see this total figure or the numbers start scaring you, don't let it scare you away, because I definitely did not have the total figure or anywhere close to the total figure saved in my bank account when I bought the car. You just sort of do it in drips and drabs and it just doesn't feel like you're spending that much money, even though you are. It's kind of weird. Just remember that you get the ute in the shed, that's the hardest part, and then everything just flows from there. So it's probably a good time for you to quickly drop a comment on what you actually think the number's gonna be. I had some Instagram messages that were so far from being even close to what I've spent, and it's quite funny. So definitely, just as a laugh, drop what you think I've actually spent on it. What I'm gonna do is break this up into categories, and what we'll start with is the Patrol. Now I actually bought this Patrol off a friend of mine named Chris. He had sort of tore it down. He had a build. I might be able to chuck up a photo if it's all right with Chris, but he started tearing it down because of the rust in the roof, and he was about to recab it. He then decided to sell it, and he sold the Bullbar, the tray, the whole lot except for the Patrol, and I snuck in and I bought the Patrol off him. Now I paid about 5 grand for it, which is relatively cheap in today's market, but back then you could snag them up, especially when they had rust for about that much. The motor, if you're unfamiliar, is the TD42, and it has got a turbo strapped to the side of it. But honestly, in today's market, you wouldn't get much for 5 grand. Now Harry's Bogan bus actually, which is TD42 wagon, I think he paid about 5 grand for that. So these deals are definitely out there, but there's a lot of vultures on Marketplace now, and it's brutal. So I paid 5 grand for a cab chassis and a massive rot hole in the roof of it. Now when you buy a ute cab chassis, you see a lot of chassis, and the chassis on this was looking very, very worse for wear. So full wire wheel on the chassis, full paint, and a full brace kit was fitted. The chassis bracing kit was from PSR. It was around about $200, including my crossmember notch, just to allow the tail shaft to flex a little bit more. And I also bought a coil tower bolt-in brace from Superior, so that was another $150. Now the stone guard and rust removal, I'm budgeting about 250 bucks. I used two cans of stone guard. I had to buy a special paint gun to apply the stone guard. I also had to buy wire wheels to wire wheel the chassis. So 250 bucks, the whole chassis got painted, wire wheeled, and basically stripped. So one thing that was very noticeable when I bought the car was how bad the brakes were. So I did go out and I overhauled the front brakes right at the start, and then later on I overhauled the rear brakes. So I got new calipers up front, disc brakes all round, a second-hand caliper in the back, and new pads all round for a total of $1,000. Now I also got extended front and rear brake lines. Now they were about $100 as well. Now for the chassis total, it's $1,660 to basically sort out the chassis and fully brace it. So not too bad, I guess. Now moving on to the actual cab itself. The rust repair material, so that was the rust converter, the primer, the sealer, and the actual material to re-weld in. Now that was roughly about $300. It's very, very hard to judge that because I just use so much of the stuff, but roughly around 300 bucks, I reckon you'll be right, getting a fair bit of rust out of your car. Now the Raptor for the cab was $350. I used 4 1-litre drums as well as some tint. Now I also had to use primer. The primer was actually about $300. I used a etch primer and primed the whole cab, then we sprayed it with the Raptor. Materials, sanding pads, etc. Now what that will include is things like sanding pads, wire wheels, flat disc, cut-off wheels, anything that's sort of a consumable when it comes down to actually stripping a cab and painting it, and also the rust repair. I'm gonna allow $400 for that. I pulled the rubber back on the window and I did find a lot of rust around the window seal as well. So we pulled the glass out, fixed the rust, and I'm not gonna put the old glass back in. It's probably 20 years old. So new glass up front, that was $300, including a brand new rubber. Honestly, one of the best things I've ever done. New windshield, it's friggin' mint. Now, powder coating. I did get the stainless steel snorkel. It was actually just raw polished. I got that powder coated black. I also got the door locks and the door handles powder coated black. I didn't actually pay for it because they were friends of mine that done it, but I'm just gonna estimate around $250 for powder coating. Now, painting the grille, the mirrors, and the tint spray. As you can see, all the orange on the car is actually tint sprayed with nightshade. Now, the rest of it, the grille paint, I painted the Bullbar. I actually used a sound deadening rattle can up in the guards. All that sort of stuff, it does add up, so I'm just gonna allow $100 for miscellaneous spray paints. The headlights, eBay special, $100, not bad, but they did break actually, so pretty bad. Bonnet protector, eBay special, $75. Now that brings the total of the cab to $2,175, which honestly I think is pretty good. If you were to drop your cab off with rust and a paint job at a shop, you'd be looking at probably $6,000 to $12,000, if not more, for that sort of stuff. So $2,175, pretty good if you ask me. Now, moving on to the interior, probably one of my favorite parts of the Patrol. Immaculate interior, I freaking love it. I have the GME XRS with the full drive pack. Now, GME actually sent that out as part of a deal to make a video on it, and I absolutely love that UHF. But they are a whopping $600. For what it is actually not too bad, but there is obviously a lot of other cheaper options out there. We also have a custom-made roof console. Now, that cost me $250. It was a bloke pretty local to me on Facebook Marketplace. He just makes them up at his house, $250. Now the steering wheel, I couldn't actually find the invoice for the steering wheel, but it is an ADR approved steering wheel, and I really think that if you are going to change the steering wheel, first of all, if you've got an airbag, I really think you shouldn't touch your steering wheel. I just think leave it alone, but if you don't have an airbag and you want to change the steering wheel, I really recommend you look for an ADR approved. It's basically, it ticks all the boxes for Australian standards. And I feel a lot better knowing that it's not going to break going around the corner, and it's actually been tested for its strength and all that, whatever they test steering wheels for. Now the gauges, I have some pretty cheap gauges. You can go nuts on them. Mine are the SAS gauges. They're sort of the well-known Super Cheap brand. I don't think it's Super Cheap's brand, but Super Cheap sell them. Now they are a dual function gauge, so the cost of 2 gauges, I actually get 4 readouts from them. They were $300 for the 2 gauges, which is quite expensive. But if you look at other brands such as Red Arc and all that, 1 gauge I think is about $600. So not bad, not the best gauge, but not bad. The pillar pod that the gauges are mounted in, that was about $75. Once again, eBay special. The head unit and the speakers were combined $300. They were on a super cheap sale, I believe I got them. They're not very good, but $300, you can't expect too much. And that brings the interior total to $1,675. Now, in the upcoming episodes, I will be changing the interior a little bit, and it does get a lot more expensive, but I really do like just clean, simple, and stock interiors. I used to be a fan of gauges everywhere and neon lights, and now I just like it stock standard and pretty well tucked away. Now onto the Bullbar. Now the Bullbar is custom made, and it is made by a guy named Dustin at Dusty's Fab. Now obviously, because I made a video on it, he looked after me quite a fair bit and actually drove it to me from Toowoomba. Now the Bullbar cost me $550, but I'd expect you from him, he is very cheap, but I'd expect you to pay anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. Now, because it's from Dusty's Fab, I'm probably going to put it at the $1,000 range and just total it as $1,000. Wheels and tires. Now, I am running the Yearly Special. They are Chinese beadlock. A lot of people run them, a lot of people have problems with the bolt snapping. I personally haven't. I've also got high tensile bolts ready to go in, so if you're buying them, buy the bolts and fit them yourself and put the high tensiles in straight away. But all in all, these wheels are friggin' good, and I am such a cheap bastard when it comes to tyres that I'm also running his tyres, which are Chinese as well. I paid $2,600 for wheels and tyres, and you can see why I'm a cheap bastard now, because that is friggin' cheap for beadlocks that are polished aluminium, and they honestly look amazing too. So 2,600 bucks will get you a set of the Chinese specials. Moving on, we have a number plate. Now, obviously, just deduct this figure if you don't want a number plate, but my number plate cost me 450 bucks because it's the cheapest one you can get, where you can use letters and numbers. You can spend 3 grand on a number plate. I highly recommend you just try and spend 495 bucks. I got it on sale for 450 bucks, so not too bad. Now, the tray's a bit of a hard one because you can buy them off fabricators reasonably cheap. I used to always think that I could make one cheaper, but as you actually make them, you realize that a lot of time and money goes into building custom trays. So steel at the time was 550 bucks, which isn't too bad. Steel has gone up dramatically. I even know with buying like little offcuts here and there, it has changed since COVID. The alloy floor and mud guards, I actually did all the design work, so I drew them up on paper and I sent them into an alloy place and they made them for 750 bucks. Now the floor is 3mm thick plate, so I did have to buy 2 sheets and they put a fold in them. Now the aluminium guards is obviously where the time's at for the alloy boys, so 750 bucks. Now the Raptor, once again, 4 litres of Raptor I used to paint the tray. That was 350 bucks. I still haven't painted underneath the tray. That is still pretty well raw underneath there, so I would probably recommend you get 2 lots of Raptor if you're going to paint it, so you can double that figure. The primer for that was $150. The tail lights on the back there, an eBay special, they were about $100. The mud flaps were 80 bucks. The Sikaflex was 60. I used 3 tubes of Sikaflex, and the welding and grinding supplies was about $325. I used just about the smaller, I think it's small or the medium sized bottle of gas, and I used about half a spool of wire. And yeah, it just all adds up. So I'm allowing 325 bucks for that, bringing the total of my custom tray to $2,365. Now, I was expecting to pay a lot less than that. I was expecting actually to be around about 1,200 bucks. I used to see on Marketplace people selling trays for 2 grand. And I always used to think I could build it cheaper than that. Turns out I friggin' can't. So 2,365 is what my tray cost me. You could go a lot crazier than me with suspension. The suspension I have is more than enough, I feel, unless you go on comp truck or you just want to flex it for the gram. I still think I spent quite a fair bit, but at the same time, this build was so special to me that I really wanted to have the best of the best suspension. So I went with Superior Engineering for all of it. They did look after me a bit, but I do have the retail prices, what you would expect to sort of pay for yourself. The Patrol did come with front and rear adjustable panhards, so that's pretty much the only thing I didn't actually buy. So we've got 5-inch coils. They were $500 for all 4. The drag link was $450. I have the comp spec one at the front there. The steering dampener was $175 plus 44 bucks for the actual mounting kit, so you can mount it onto your drag link. So the nitro shocks, they're 6-inch shocks. They cost me 800 bucks. Now you can go absolutely crazy with shocks. I'm not doing the Baja, so nitro shocks for me were the obvious choice. Upper control arms in the rear. Now they were $425. They are fully adjustable and they look mint. Coil retainers, $77. They stop the coil from actually dropping out when you go to full flex. Dropout cones, $172. They basically help seat the coil back up into where it's supposed to seat once it does come unsprung. Now the arms on this car are my favorite by far. I think they look amazing. So the rear long arms were $750 for the kit, and you do need a welder and a grinder and a fair bit of time to fit them. So the hybrid Superflex arms has the normal radius arm, and then it has the Hyperflex radius arm, so it runs 2 different arms. And then it also has the drop box, which takes it to the Land Cruiser style mushroom bush, so you get a lot more down travel and no binding up. They're friggin' awesome as well. And they were $1,600. So pretty expensive, but honestly well worth it. The extended bump stops were $100, bringing the total of the suspension to $5,093. Now obviously that's a pretty big spend, $5 grand. It's actually the cost of the car. The suspension in a full drive is basically what makes it so capable. Obviously I've got a locker sitting over there ready to go in, but without lockers, you definitely need suspension, and this thing with the suspension setup, it has surprised the hell out of me. So I highly recommend Superior. I do highly recommend spending a bit of extra money on suspension, especially if you want it to perform really well off-road. Now I have really enjoyed having this Patrol, how it sits. It's not over the top, it's not too capable. It's very fun off-road. And I definitely could 100% leave it like this and be happy. It's just because I love modifying cars and I love going through different stages of different things that I'm actually doing Coil 2.0. Now are you ready for the total figure? The total figure for version 1.0 of Mr. Coil is $19,308 Australian dollars. Now I honestly think that's pretty good for a long-armed 35-inch tired bead-locked Patrol that obviously looks the part with the custom tray. So yeah, 19.3K to get Coil from cab chassis to where he is now. I honestly don't think that figure's too bad. I really don't. I'd love to know what you guys think, but 19 grand, you know, I don't think you could buy a car in this condition on Marketplace or anything for 19 grand with this new and high quality of parts, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think about that sort of figure, if you'd be happy to pay that sort of money for a build of your own. Now, would there be anything that I would change in this build? Obviously there is, because I'm doing Coil 2.0, but honestly, in terms of regrets, I don't really regret using the Raptor, because I feel like if I was to spray metallic at the skill level I was at when I painted the Raptor, I pretty much would have just been pissing money down the drain because I wouldn't have been able to spray it right. Probably wouldn't do the Raptor again. I'd probably just go for a straight up metallic or even straight up base coat with a gloss over the top and then actually have a shiny car. The Raptor, the way I sprayed it, yes, it looks all right, but it is piss weak. I can scratch it with my fingernail. I honestly think it's just when you shoot it out of like a top loading gun, like I did, it just doesn't stand up just like it does to a Schutz gun. So yeah, I love the color. I sort of love how it looks. It's sort of a matte sort of finish. But if I had the same skill as what I have now, I would go back, I would spray it metallic and I'd do it right the first time. Now, other things that are quite obvious is I don't have any brush rails or sliders. Now they are coming with Coil 2.0, so I'm not gonna say that they were a regret not doing. I had to get the build done pretty quick because if you guys remember, I was building this at my workshop, and the boss just wanted it out of there as soon as possible. So I was very lucky to snag a workshop to be able to build it. Obviously now we've bought a house and I've got this shed to work in, which I'm very thankful for. That's sort of the other thing, if you guys are looking at doing a build like this, is think about where you're going to do it, where you're going to store it, what sort of equipment you have, and look at the cost of the equipment that you're going to need. Honestly, the best thing you can do is buy a project car and have fun. Like, just get the car, bring it home, sit it down and just look at it, do bit by bit. Honestly, the amount of skill that I've picked up building this thing is unreal. We pulled the bogan bus in. I think we did the bogan bus in 6 episodes or 5 episodes, which is 5 days. So we smashed the bogan bus in comparison to this, and that's because I learnt so much with this that I can pass it through onto other projects now. So yeah guys, that is the total cost breakdown of Coil. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below. I'll be happy to answer them. I will also put the prices in the description below, so if you guys want to check that out, it'll be there. I really do appreciate all the support over the build so far, and I can't wait to show you guys what we have planned in the future for Coil 2.0. So yeah guys, that's it. I hope this video has helped at least one person out there with their project, and I really encourage you guys to get into projects. There's no greater feeling than building something yourself. I just can't even describe it. It's bloody mint. So get out there, have fun, build projects, do cool shit. But for now guys, thanks for watching. If you do want to grab one of our shirts or one of our stickers, the link is in the description below. Appreciate you guys sticking around and watching this video. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Coil.
trailer. Coal in the trailer. Coal in the trailer. Coal in the trailer.